Imagine being the most liked leader in your company. Everybody enjoys your friendliness, invites you to all the social events, and just downright loves your personality. But what if your team is failing to meet performance standards and your authority is shaky when times get tough? Today, we're going to talk about why the best leaders aren't always the most popular, but are always respected. Stick with us. Hey everyone, John here. 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 Welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. Hello everyone, welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. I am your host, John Espinosa. Today, we're going to dive into the popularity contest. And I've experienced this even personally. When I first became a leader, I wanted people to like me. Who doesn't? I'm sure you have been there when you stepped into either a team lead role, any type of leadership role, and you just wanted your team, your group, whoever to like you. And so what did you do? You bent over backwards. You did all the things that they needed without empowering them to do it. Heck, you took work home. That way people would like you. Well, today we're going to talk about how leadership isn't a popularity contest. We're going to go over 3 key items that are going to help you build respect without damaging your popularity. Because you can't just survive on popularity alone, especially when the times get tough. You need to make a difficult decision. This isn't a popularity contest. So get out your journals, get out your pens. I want this to be an active listening session. For those new listeners out there, welcome to the Go Be Great community. Thank you very much for dedicating time to personally develop yourself. Kudos to you. I want to make sure that I give actionable items, each one of these steps, for you to be able to implement, to make sure that you're not trying to win the popularity contest of leadership. So let's get into really the story here, and I want to set the foundation. I want to set the backdrop. Imagine if you had a leader, you were under a manager, you were under a boss, and they were very personable. They were easy to talk to. You could always go into their office, knock on their door. Hey, do you have some time, John? Sure, come on in. You sit down and you just talk about work, talk about non-work. 45 minutes pass, guess what? You get up, you go back to work. What happens? Well, I'll tell you what happens. So I'm sure that you've had a leader who is very engaging, has an open door policy even. You can come freely. Anytime they're busy, anytime they're working on something. Hey, John, do you have a minute? Sure, come on in. You sit down and then you monopolize that time. Or it could look like somebody who encourages you to the point where you find success, and then what happens? You forget about that person. So I'm sure everybody can relate to a leader, a manager, a boss that has had that engaging personality, has an open door policy. You can come in and talk to them. They are just a comfortable individual that you can speak with. They're liked by everybody, but here's the downside sometimes. The downside is when times get tough, that leader becomes absent. When the hard conversations need to have, the structure isn't there in order to address those difficult situations. Standards begin to fall and expectations begin to become unmet. So for you out there that is leading a team, that is leading a group, I want you to put yourself into that position. Is it more important for you to be popular, or is it more important for you to have respect? In my case, it was a tough road. I'm a people person. I'm a feeler on the Myers-Briggs scale. So for me, that's an easy thing to do. However, I found myself in a difficult position whenever I needed to make cuts or whenever expectations weren't being met and I had to have that difficult conversation. So I want you to be better prepared than I was when I stepped into a leadership position. And we're going to get into these 3 topics that we're going to talk about today. And I just know that they're going to be able to help you. So let's talk about the first one. The first one I've titled is Clarity Beats Popularity. And, when we provide clarity for our teams, for the individuals that we lead, it gives them a sense of direction. I talk a lot about vision. I talk a lot about that being our compass and our North Star. But here, we're providing clarity, not just comfort. And that's the differentiator here. When I talk about being popular, you want people to be comfortable. But sometimes life isn't comfortable. Most of the time, life is difficult. Most of the time, you are trying to solve problems in the business that you're in, whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, a team lead, a manager, a new manager, a second level manager, leader, whatever that looks like, you are going to be under uncomfortable situations. So we have to fall back on clarity as leaders. And the way that we can do that is, one, we need to communicate our expectations. We need to set that standard right up front and then make sure that there's clarity around those expectations. This is what that expectation looks like for me. What does it look like for you? That is a necessary conversation. That is a necessary conversation that you need to have in order to gain that clarity. Another way that I love to create clarity over popularity is setting goals with deadlines. And when I talk about goals, I mean standards. What is these standards that need to be met and when do they need to be met by? And then hold people accountable. Weekly check-ins are a great opportunity for you to figure out, all right, are we on track? Are we falling behind? Is there something in the way? How can I support you? Make sense? And then last but not least here, make sure that you have some type of accountability tool to keep you accountable and your team accountable. Now, what does this look like? It could be an official project tracking list. It could be a simple spreadsheet. It could be an online tool, but that makes everybody crystal clear around what deliverable is expected and when is it expected by. So again, this concept of clarity beats popularity, make sure that you are crystal clear in your expectations and when you expect those to happen. The second one we're going to talk about today is courageous conversations build respect. This was a tough one for me. This was whenever you get into a difficult conversation and you start getting those butterflies or you start, the hair on the back of your neck starts standing up. I don't know if any of you out there listening have been in that situation, but it's a tough spot to be in, but it's necessary. It's necessary for leaders who want respect over popularity to be able to navigate through courageous conversations. So respect is gained when you handle tough conversations directly. Don't beat around the bush here. Again, back to that uncomfortableness. One of the things that I had to do as a leader was to become comfortable with the uncomfortable feelings that you are going to have as a leader, really basically as a person. It's unnatural for us to go in and have difficult conversations and hold somebody accountable for something that they are not meeting. I want to take a quick break from our discussion today to mention a couple things. First of all, thank you for listening. Only 50% of our listeners are subscribed to our channel. Do me a favor, click on that subscribe button. It's going to allow our channel to continue to grow and give you updates whenever we get new episodes published. The second thing is our coaching program. People who want to work with me are looking to make a lasting change, level up, or get unstuck. I gave up on my dreams. I was a young parent, had to make a couple career changes. I went through some financial hardships. I had to learn how to flip my mindset and stay consistent. Our coaching programs are individualized one-on-one sessions where I will teach you a proven system and guarantee that you can reinvent yourself over and over again. If that sounds like something that interests you, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com and sign up to get more information. Now back to the show. So let's just acknowledge that out front. And I understand that you might be in that spot where difficult conversations bring a lot of anxiety. Difficult conversations bring just that nervousness feeling. So what can you do? One, I want you to practice initiating difficult conversations. How can you practice? Have them by yourself. Jot down what the gap is. So what are you seeing, the observable things? One, what's the expectation? 2, what's the delta? So what are you observing that is not meeting the expectation? And then how are you going to close the gap? That way you have a plan. You're going into the conversation with an outline. It doesn't necessarily make you more comfortable, but it gives you the framework to have that discussion. Huge tip there. Then use empathy while being firm. So being empathetic, put yourself in their shoes, but make sure that you're firm in that conversation. So being empathetic could look like, hey, I understand that you have some challenges around childcare. I need you to show up, though, between the core hours of 9 and 3 p.m. Those are essential for us. I plan meetings during those times. There's project status updates that are occurring there. How can we work to ensure that you're working within or you're in the office during those core hours? Close that gap, identify the observable things that you are noticing, and then move on with that conversation. Create some feedback loops. Here's another key strategy for you whenever we talk about those courageous conversations is weekly meetings. What does that feedback loop look like? So an action occurs, feedback is given. Does the correction happen? That's the loop that I'm talking about. Integrate those in your weekly statuses, whether that's through IM, it could be in the project status updates. Yellow, red, green stoplight charts are a great way for you to integrate those feedback loops. It's a feedback. If the project is falling behind, it turns a different color and then we mitigate. So what are the risks of it falling behind and not getting caught back up, and how are we going to mitigate that? Very easy strategy for you to implement when we talk about practicing initiating those difficult conversations. And then the last practical application here is ensure team members feel heard, but they are held accountable. So back to our example of someone showing up late or having a challenge around childcare. Make sure that you listen to that employee. Give them the option. Remember, I ended with an open-ended question. How can we ensure that you are here between the core hours of 9 and 3:30? Give them that opportunity to problem solve and bring you solutions. And then once the plan is in place, now you hold them accountable. So for this one, when we talk about courageous conversations, it helps us go through the process of making sure people understand what our expectations are. We communicate those clearly. And in the end, the byproduct of that is we build respect. They may not always like it, but in the end, we're not in for the popularity contest again. We're in to make sure that people are in alignment, goals are being met, and deadlines are accomplished. The last topic that I want to talk about today, and I was journaling this, I had just a flood of emotions because when I talk about consistency, establishing authority, it's one of the probably most fundamental things that leaders can do. You need to be consistent. Have you ever had a leader who was a little wishy-washy? They would say or make a decision, and then maybe even an hour later, that decision would change. How did that make you feel? Put yourself on the other side of the coin whenever you're trying to be a people pleaser. If you're not consistent with your decision-making, your behavior, people are not going to respect you. They're not going to respect you as a person, and they're not going to respect your authority when you need to make the difficult conversation. And they're not going to respect your authority when you need to make that difficult decision. So let's talk a little bit about this. So being consistently in a firm and fair way brings that respect and trust. Trust is one of the hardest things to earn as a leader and one of the easiest things to lose. So again, popularity can fluctuate, but here respect built on consistency will last the test of time. So what are some applications that you can do to build this consistency? Make decisions based on clear principles, not on emotional states. And this is a self-awareness piece. If you're in an emotional state, say you're coming out of a meeting and that meeting got a little heated, some things were told to you, and now you got to go down and tell them and communicate that message to your team or whoever you're responsible for. You may just take a 30-minute break. Take a walk around the building, clear your mind, come into that meeting with just a fresh, new slate. Don't bring in your baggage from the previous meetings, especially if it was emotionally charged and decisions need to be made or decisions need to be communicated. that's probably not the time that it needs to happen. So take a pause, take a time out. Another way that we can practice that is develop transparent decision-making framework. So I've talked a lot about decision-making in previous episodes. Go back, search, take a listen to those. You have to have some type of framework. And then I like to share that framework. This is how I'm going to make a decision. Is it going to be by consensus? Am I the ultimate decision maker and I'm going to gather information? Whatever that looks like, share that with the team. That way everybody understands. And then if it's a difficult decision, let them know this is a business decision. We have examined all of our possible options, and this was a decision for the best of the team, best of the organization, and ultimately best for the business. So when we talk about these three things to build respect over popularity, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of whoever you're communicating with. Be there just for a minute. One of the things that I learned later on in my leadership journey was the fact that, respect earned through clarity, courage, and respect outlasts popularity. Hands down, 99.1% of the time. Even the most charismatic leaders that I can think of or that you have had the privilege of being under still gained and earned and demanded respect. So through these three things that we talked about today, 1, clarity beats popularity. Be very clear on your expectations, goals, and deliverables. And then 2, courageous conversations build respect. Go into those conversations with an outline. Don't back down when a conversation or an issue arises. Handle that issue as soon as you possibly can. I can promise you it's going to be uncomfortable, but people will respect you in the end. And then last but not least, be consistent, and that's going to help establish your authority. I hope this helped somebody today. Go and lead courageously, earn the respect that you deserve, and I promise you, popularity, it'll follow later on. I believe in you. Go be great. Talk to everyone later. Bye-bye. If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor. Click on that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.